As the world cheered from the news from Pfizer and BioNTech, it also made clear the logistical nightmare that awaits as millions of vaccines would need to be delivered around the globe. Joining us from Berlin to talk about this mammoth task is Bloomberg Opinion's Chris Bryant. Chris, it's good to have you with us this morning. You have a piece out today. It's called DHL, FedEx, and UPS are ready to save the world. Are these companies going to be the unsung heroes of the pandemic?
Hi, Tim. Yes, I think they will be, and not for the first time. And if you cast your mind back to the start of the pandemic, FedEx, DHL, UPS were responsible for shipping a lot of the protective gear that we needed, the ventilators we needed at short notice. In the recent months, they've been stepping up to deliver all the e-commerce goods that we've been ordering. And now, just as they're as busy as they've ever been, that they're going to have to be called into action to deliver these vaccines. And it's not going to be a simple task. And as I was writing today, the challenge is twofold. One, it's massive volumes all over the world. Perhaps as many as 10 billion doses of vaccine will need to be delivered. And the one that Pfizer and BioNTech have developed, which is very exciting, comes with a catch, and that's that it needs to be stored at very, very low temperatures. That's something these companies have expertise in doing, but it doesn't make the task any more straightforward.
So how do these companies do it, Chris? In your article, you talk about investments that they've made in cold storage, but how do they get it from one place to another at these extremely low temperatures?
Right. So, this is something that they've been planning from the very beginning. I think that needs to be commended. Both Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, but also these logistics companies very early recognized that they would need to have cold storage. This is something obviously they had already, but they've been expanding. So UPS, for example, has just recently built 2 so-called cold farms, one either side of the Atlantic. And the important thing is that basically these vaccines will need to be kept at as cold as minus 70 degrees Celsius. Now, that's extremely cold, obviously far colder than a domestic household appliance would be able to manage. But again, something that they're capable of doing. And the first doses obviously will be going in the main to wealthy countries, that do have already these cold chain facilities. The problem is going to come, though, when we come to trying to ship it to emerging markets. Perhaps, when it arrives at the airport, it'll be okay. But what happens then when it's handed over to doctors, the local clinics? This vaccine won't be able to survive terribly long without this cold chain storage.
Yeah, it's an incredibly important point. I mean, infrastructure challenges in the developing world versus in the developed world are just massively different. Chris, what about when it comes to these companies juggling the challenge of logistics for cold storage and for the vaccine, at the same time dealing with our own changing habits and how we're buying stuff online?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the first thing to say is they're really pulling out the stops at the moment. Clearly, when the vaccine, the order comes, let's go, then that will be the priority for these companies. There's no way they're not going to step up to that challenge. The problem is that the supply chains are already under immense strain, and the reason is this: that typically, air freight, which handles very time-sensitive and valuable cargo, a lot of it travels in the bellies of passenger aircraft, and of course, many of those long-haul planes are currently grounded because people are not flying, and that means that the dedicated cargo planes, which FedEx and UPS and DHL have, those have become more important than ever. And trying to get capacity on dedicated cargo planes like that is now very tight. So it could mean that, as we're trying to ship all these vaccines, that it's going to push up the price of shipping other goods. One can imagine that, if this happens before the holiday period, then you're going to have competition between vaccine shipments and Christmas presents, and these companies somehow got to keep everybody happy. The vaccine is obviously going to be the priority, and I think the net result for these companies could be that they, obviously there's a huge demand for their services, and you're seeing it already. Their profits have been rising as they've responded to this huge supply chain challenge.
Profits are going up. What are investors telling us about how they're feeling about the opportunity for these logistics companies?
I mean, I think, when the pandemic first happened, like a lot of stocks, there was a huge sell-off. You've seen FedEx's shares, though, from the March or April low rallying, 3 times now. Deutsche Post DHL shares have doubled since that low. And I think, investors are starting to recognize that there's an opportunity here, because I think even when the vaccine, comes and hopefully we can go back to some semblance of normality, I think the e-commerce shift that we've seen from retail bricks and mortar stores is probably going to be permanent. I don't think people are going to go back to ordering in the ways they did. So I think there's an expectation that these companies will be long-term beneficiaries. Saying that, though, of course, if there is a vaccine, then some of the short-term benefits they had from this very tight air freight market might start to disappear. So it's a bit of give and take. But I think, long-term winners. And ultimately, I think, we as societies are pretty glad that these companies have invested in these massive globe-spanning networks, because they've really come into their own after the last 12 months, and we'd be pretty lost without them right now.
Yeah, we're certainly lucky about that. Bloomberg Opinion's Chris Bryant in Berlin. Thanks for your time today.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.